All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming to tonight's talk. This will be the conclusion of BNSDAR, Student Health Advisory Council's Day of Health and Wellness, and I really appreciate you guys all coming. We thank Pick with Austin. They're here tonight, and they're an organization that promotes depression and suicide awareness, and we have Jeff here, from the founder of the organization, here to talk with us, and also Krista and Elise will be talking and sharing their stories with suicide and depression. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I notice you have to get really close to this thing to be heard, so if I'm leaning forward, it's not because I'm lazy. My name is Jeff, and I did form an organization 2.5 years ago, called Pick with Austin. We formed it as a nonprofit 501c3, and it is due to the loss of my own son, who died by suicide a couple of years ago. He was a musician, and so one of the things that we decided to do when we formed our organization was to focus it on music. And every time we go out to an event like this, or any event that we go to, we always bring a guitar, and we give the guitar out free to somebody. We also work with several crisis centers and hospitals that we give guitars to kids who are at risk of depression. Has everybody gotten an opportunity to get a raffle ticket tonight? I see only one hand. Okay, make sure you have a raffle ticket. Anyway, at the end of this presentation, we will raffle this guitar and this amplifier off. They were both donated to us, one by a company. The guitar was custom built by a company called American Timber, and the amplifier was donated by Guitar Resurrection, which is on Lamar in Austin. In addition to Pick with Austin, I'm a member of the Texas Suicide Prevention Council and the Williamson County Mental Health Task Force. And one of the things that we do with the task force is meet once a month to talk about mental health related things involving youth and children. And I also work with Bluebonnet Trails Community Services, which is a MHMR. They offer services for youth and teens and adults that have mental health related issues such as depression, major depression, bipolar disorder, ADHD, schizophrenia, anything that's mental related they deal with. And they work with people on a sliding scale. They also work with people who have no insurance. They also have a crisis center. They call it the Respite Centre, which is located here in Georgetown on College Avenue, just down the road. And it is a place where somebody who is in crisis can go. They can spend a couple days, couple of weeks, a month. They have rooms, they have beds there. It's kind of an escape from reality, I guess I would call it. In the back of the room, there are some brochures. One of them is for the Crisis Center in Georgetown, and there's some other brochures as well. I wanted to ask the people here today if anybody knows somebody who died by suicide. If you can raise your hands, I kind of want to mentally get an idea. How about, does anybody here know somebody who has attempted suicide? Okay, I notice even more hands went up on that. There are more attempts than there are actual successes, which is a horrible word to use, but guys tend to commit suicide and fulfill that commitment a lot more so than females, statistically. We're going to have a couple of speakers come up here in a few moments, and they're going to talk about what kind of signs to look for regarding depression and suicidal warnings. So I'm not going to get into that myself. But one last question I wanted to ask is, does anybody here know anybody who may be showing signs of depression? Okay, a little bit less on that. Well, no, about the same amount of hands came up on that one. You can't see who's raising hands. I can see. I saw about half of the people here raise their hands. So it's definitely an important issue that gets ignored a lot. It is stigmatized. It is something people don't like to talk about. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. One of the things that tends to happen is when somebody commits or somebody dies by suicide, the family of that person wants to keep it quiet. complete opposite of what I've been doing. A lot of people are ashamed or they think they've done something wrong, and I'm not saying whether I believe that I have or have not, but I am saying that by doing nothing or by hiding it, you're not helping the next person that might be considering. So that's our goal, is to get out there and let people know what happened to us and to encourage them to pay attention to their youth and adults as well, friends, relatives. If somebody is saying that they may commit suicide, or if they're doing some of the signs that indicate they may be considering suicide, don't just look at them and say, well, you're a teenager and you're going through a phase, or you're just trying to get attention, because probably, potentially they are, but it's not worth the chance. I am going to ask Krista to come down here and talk for a few moments, and then I'm going to be talking again, but I'm going to kind of break it up by having a few guest speakers join me. Where is Krista? Krista. You want to wear it?
I think I'll be fine. Can everybody hear me? All right. Hello, good evening. My name is Krista. And until the last few years, I really didn't know anything about depression or suicide. I mean, these topics just weren't a part of my world. When I had a friend that called me in the middle of the night crying, needing help, she said that there was that no one was going to miss her when she was gone, that her family would be better off without her. I mean, I was stunned, shocked, and I was scared. And I didn't know what to do because she had told me not to tell my mom. Well, I mean, my mom answered the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course she wanted to know what was going on. And my mom told me that if I couldn't tell her about it, then I needed to tell a counselor at my school. So I went to talk to my counselor, and she talked to my friend and her mom. And my friend ended up getting counseling and getting involved with dance and swimming, and she's very good now, and she's doing much better today. But that wasn't while that was the first eye-opener, another big eye-opener for me was the son of a family friend dying by suicide. And I was so sad I didn't understand why this had to happen. So I began volunteering my time with Pick with Austin and to try and learn more to how I could help. I have learned more about depression and suicide among teens, and I wanted to share some of what I have learned with you. So, to begin with, I would like to answer the question on why you should be concerned about suicide. I mean, suicide is rarely an impulsive decision. A lot of people go through, and if they're thinking about suicide, they've most likely thought a lot about suicide. And in the days and hours before someone acts on this idea, it may be very likely that they offer clues to friends, roommates, or colleagues, classmates, even teachers. So therefore, your awareness of suicide could possibly save a life. Then, how will I know if my friend is at risk for suicide? So people who feel suicidal usually communicate these to others through words or actions. They may talk about their intentions to die, or they may threaten to commit suicide. They may make an attempt to kill themselves. But whether or not the reasons that they give and their actions make sense to you, you can't dismiss their indications lightly. So, a couple of signs that you might want to look for are within verbal statements, people talking about nothing matters anymore, or I'm thinking of just ending it all. Nobody cares, or nobody is going to miss me when I die. I feel like killing myself. Now, behaviors might be a little harder to pinpoint. Difficulty functioning at home, work, or in school settings. Focus on morbid or negative themes, writing stories, articles, letters, emails, focusing on their own death. Getting affairs in order, and giving away valued possessions. Now, these might all be normal things. I mean, zombies, anything, but coupled with sleeping pills, or behaving recklessly, changing in eating habits, sleeping, or normal activities, feeling overly tired. All of these statements and actions need to be taken seriously. These are indications or causes for concerns under any circumstances, and are especially so if they happen to be close to significant change or loss in someone's life, like a death in the family or a relationship breakup, exams, problems at work, anything like that. So you might be asking yourself, what can I do to help? Well, the first thing you can do is just listen. That's one of the biggest things that you can do. Listen with compassion and acceptance, without rejecting, without analyzing, comparing, or categorizing, or even giving advice. The first thing you need to do is just listen, and you need to understand the person's perspective and not your own perspective. Then you need to remain patient. Your friend may not be immediately comfortable with telling you or welcoming your concern. Stay supportive and focusing on how much you care for this person. Express your concern without expecting your friend to change how they feel. Don't bargain and keep secrets. Especially don't let this person convince you that it's not serious. Don't let this person convince you that they can handle it on their own. Don't bargain with someone who is suicidal. People who have made suicidal threats or attempts can often be very effective at persuading their friends to keep silent about what they have done. And the last thing one of the biggest things that you can do is to make sure that you have enough support for yourself. You don't have to deal with this alone. If you are concerned about someone, you can call Pick with Austin or the Bluebonnet Trails Community Service. We have some brochures at the front if you're looking for those hotlines, or your campus counseling center even, and consult with a professional about how to proceed. It's also possible that as an individual, you may have limited power to help someone who is suicidal. So if you or someone you know needs help, please call the Crisis Intervention Hotline at 1-800-841-1255. Now, I just want to close by reading this piece about bullying that was written by a Leander resident and parent, Lindsay Jane Cruz House. Bullying. Imagine the isolation. Now you see the world through a window. On one side of the glass, happy, untroubled people. And on the other side, you. When parents are left with no way to turn to take action against school districts, they do so because they are left feeling like they have nowhere else to turn. They are left feeling isolated, alone, and in despair that the bullying will continue in our schools, that other children will have their lives ruined, their academic chances thwarted, and sadly, some of them may even be driven to end their own lives. These families sue the school districts as a resort, not for monetary gain. Their hope is that there will be a change in the failings of the districts to take action. Yet, year after year, the districts throw taxpayer monies into the pockets of lawyers to fight against these family cases. Indeed, the district's insurance may cover a large, if not the full amount of the case's cost, but I am certain that the insurance premium schools face are only going to increase the issues of bullying, are not addressed educationally, and without set disciplinary actions and the procedures being in place and followed. Prevention is better than a cure in the long run, and more financially frugal. In my personal view of bullying, in the year of 2013, I hope that people can take a stand. I want children and parents and teachers to know that they are not facing the issues of bullying alone. With each day, an estimated 160,000 students in the USA alone refuse to go to school because they dread physical and verbal aggression of their peers. Many more attend schools in a chronic state of anxiety and depression, often leading to suicide. Also, recent studies have shown that 25% of school bullies will be convicted in a criminal offense later in their life. Bullying is clearly costing our society's future greatly. Bullying wrecks lives of the bullies and the bullied. Bullying costs huge amount of money as it is not already being addressed, and countless resources are being consumed by tackling truancy, reduced student retention, low teacher morals, negative perceptions of schools, and parent hostility. Schools are rightly sued for failing to provide safe learning environments and are being held liable for the harassment, violence, and suicides caused by bullying. There's often a lack of accountability within schools, within families, within our own societies as a whole. Without taking a stand, speaking out, and working together as a whole, we can only pray that no more lives will be lost. Sometimes, praying just isn't enough. Thank you for coming tonight. If you'll excuse me, I do happen to have a lot of homework.
Thank you, Krista. One of the things that we try to do is bring out young people to talk. Nobody wants to listen to me, and I'm not a very good speaker. This isn't something I ever aspired to do. My life totally changed when I lost my son, who, by the way, it had nothing to do with bullying. But I do notice that a lot of the situations that I'm coming across where suicide is involved, there is bullying as a root cause to the depression that the young person is feeling. So it's definitely an issue, and I know it's not politically correct to talk about schools not taking action, and I think they do try to, but I think they're afraid to take action that will really resolve something. So rather than get on their cases and sue them and things like that, I'd like to see more people talk to them and give them ideas. If you have children, I mean, most of you are young people in here, but when you have children and your kids have issues at school, talk to the school and see if you can work with them to resolve those issues rather than causing legal battles and such, because it'd be better to nip it in the bud before it goes that far. I guess we will move on to our next speaker, who is Elise. And remember, if you don't have, I haven't seen anybody new come in the room, but if you don't have a raffle ticket, make sure you get one. We're also going to pull some raffle tickets to give away some free CDs. One of the other things that we do with our organization, it'll be just one moment. One of the other things that we do with our organization is we produce a CD of music. That's music that's donated to us from different bands around the world. The songs are written specifically with depression or bullying or suicide, things like that in mind. We produced our first one about 1.5 years ago. We have our second one coming out. It's been delayed because of South by Southwest. The company that's producing them or doing the duplication has been backed up, but those will be coming out in a couple of weeks. We're going to give away some of these. There's some good music on here. It's a mix of pop and country and rock. There's some metal on here. I mean, there's almost everything on here. Even some classical music. So it's a really good mix of stuff to listen to. We'll give away, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 of these, plus the guitar in a few minutes.
Hello, I'm Elise. I know quite a few of you. Okay, as a side note, I'm really happy that you all are talking about the bullying. Me personally, my school did not do the fight that I was hoping for. My junior year of school, I actually left a year early because of bullying. I missed 23 days of school, I think it was, because I just could physically not get myself to go to school because of bullying. And out of a high school of 200 people, in the past 2 years, we've had 3 people commit suicide. So, it's crazy numbers. Okay, anyway, I'm here today to talk about my sister, who actually, I think it was 2 Thanksgivings ago, I was told that she had tried to commit suicide. So this is from her. This is all her work. She is writing now. So I'll just start with her prologue. The moments after you decide to throw down the yarn are the moments you cannot feel comfortable writing about. I was strangled on the playground in 1995. I was raped in 2003. My apartment was ransacked in 2007. I was taken off my work schedule in 2011. Between the dates of October 2011 and November 2011, I descended into the spiral of depression, hospitalized for a suicide attempt. Looking at my sister's eyes when I gained consciousness showed me what I had become. I was the one now wreaking havoc on others' lives. I was the one causing the pitiful look of inescapable sadness. Now, in February of 2013, with the help of counselors and my family, I am pursuing a master's degree in creative writing, have a significant partner who is caring and kind, and hold relationships with friends and family who have been with me throughout the years. The thing is, as terrible as life may seem at times, it can always be turned around. It is no easy feat. If anyone needs help unknotting their lives instead of cutting it away, I'm always there. Please contact, and I can give contact information now. It's abigler06@hotmail.com. If you feel as if life is just a bit too hard to deal with, or if you don't know what life is to you, or even if you just need an ear to speak into. So I'm going to read a story that she actually wrote, and it's kind of her reflection of her life now. It's called The Temptation of Sleep. And that right there, now look closely, girls. That's the Big Dipper, my father said jovially, pointing to the vast sky above us. We sprawled out in my grandparents' backyard. The lightning bugs twinkled around us, blinking ever so often to remind us that they were there. My mother had spread out a large patchwork quilt that smelled of mothballs and dust. The damp grass pressed into my back against the cloth, and I rolled over next to my father to grow more comfortable. My eyes squinted furiously into the country sky as I tried to find the constellations he had discovered. I'm going to be an astronaut, I said matter-of-factly, and was too young to decipher the grin on my father's face. At that time, I believed that he was responding in agreement to my profession of choice. Later, I would find that he was amused with the simplicity of my dreams and days I could never hope to achieve. You know, Amanda, you can be anything you want to be. Just look into the sky. There's that much up there, so much to do, and I know you'll be able to discover it all. His words petted my ego, and I became lost in textbook pictures of the Milky Way and Jupiter's ring. In the close distance, my younger sister was devouring a bowl of strawberries we had picked from my grandmother's garden that day. Diverting my attention to her, I giggled as I saw a stream of sticky juice pouring out of her mouth and onto her chin. Aaron, you're all messy, my little voice shouted across the line of familiar bodies. Hurriedly dropping the berry stem into the bowl, she wiped her chubby, dimpled chin with the palm of her hand. And look, right there, my father continued, adjusting his large bottle-bottom glasses and ignoring the interaction between my sister and me. If you found the Big Dipper, you'll be able to see Mars. It's the red blinking star. Forgetting my sister's soiled face, I turned back to the sky in search of the planet. The warm summer air floated around my face, and my eyes began to water with its intensity. An edge of the blanket became dislodged, and my mother scrambled to pin it to the ground with a large rock from my grandmother's garden. The stone thudded on the ground, and my mother smiled as she sidled in between my father and my youngest sister, who had already succumbed to the temptations of sleep. Elise's toddler chest rose up and down with deep breathing, her mouth hanging open and her finger pulling on her belly button contently. Now this one, said my father, his blue eyes flashing mysteriously in the dim light of the back porch. This is your mommy's star. Look over there, just right next to the Big Dipper, brightest one in the sky. John, my mother said, stretching his name into three syllables while shoving his shoulder playfully with both hands. That's the North Star. Yep, he said with finality, that's the one. They kissed briefly. My mother's body twisted to find my father's face. I looked away, not ashamed, but somehow knowing, even as a child, that kisses were a private matter. I smiled to myself, placing my thumb over the large moon in the sky. I breathed in deeply, looked over at the sleeping bodies of my sisters and the huddled forms of my parents, and wished that everyone would stay awake, if only for another hour, so that the night would never end. Taking initiative to make sure my parents knew I was awake, I shoved myself up from the pallet and ran to the back porch to grab the lightning bug jar we had filled earlier. I peered into the container, struggling to open the jar with my arm. Finally, I felt the lid give way, and I laughed as I shook the glass. Littering the sky with blinking green lights, it slipped out of my grasp, breaking on the brick pathway of the strawberry patch. Amanda, what are you doing? My father asked, calling from where my family lay. Letting them out so I can catch more, I said, returning to the blanket with the broken jar in hand. Honey, it's getting late. Come back here and sit with your dad and me, my mother said, patting a space between the two of them and looking at me expectantly. All right, I said, rather put out that my plan had been foiled. But the space did look comfortable, and I was sure that I could find myself to stay awake a little longer. Nestled between the two large bodies of my parents, my heart began to steady, and I stared back in the sky. The stars had turned slightly, causing the Big Dipper to rotate to the right. I looked up, trying to find other constellations that my father had not found. My eyes grew heavy, and I blinked forcibly in order to keep them open. The fear set in, the shiver of sleep, the beckoning of a dark, that I could not control. My eyes smarted with tears, and I closed them quickly so my parents would not notice. Here, John, take Aaron and I'll take Elise. My mom's already in bed, and we should probably get going soon. "'Kay," he replied, and I saw him look more wistfully up at the stars before grabbing the sticky arms of my sister and hoisting her into his barrel chest. Her head lolled against his neck, and I looked at them walk away through the slits of my eyes. Their retreating forms wobbled right and left under the weight of my sleeping sisters, their footprints crunching against the grassy ground. Their broken jar glittered on the ground, and I pressed my fingers to its jagged edge. It slid against my skin, no deeper than a paper cut. I turned over to my side, looking at the indentions our bodies had made on the quilt. Wanting to feel as secure as it must feel to be carried by the warm and strong arms of my parents, I forced myself to go limp and feigned sleep, hiding the wound in my mouth. "She must be out too," I heard my father's voice say above me. Shutting my eyelids tight, I could feel my heartbeat race against my ribs as I awaited for his embrace. His large hands reached around me, cradling my left side to his torso. Holding my head in his palm, he walked steadily. My finger dropped from my mouth, the metallic taste of blood long gone from my tongue. Keeping myself completely still, I let him place me into the back seat, not moving, while he stretched the belt buckle around my middle. The click of the buckle made me jump, and I hoped that I had grown immobile before they suspected that I was still awake. "This was a good night," my mother said, her voice interrupting the peaceful silence of the gravel road against the van wheels. "Yeah, it was," my father agreed. I assumed that they were smiling, as the happiness seeped through their hushed tones. So, 10 years later, I stood at the lake's edge, my head whirring about from the copious amounts of alcohol consumed earlier in the night. The smell of marijuana filled through the air. The Kansas wind whipped the sickling sweet smell around my face. My feet touched the edge of the water, pebbles becoming lodged in between my toes. I grimaced at the pain, but did not retreat my feet from the beach's end. The slicing into my flesh was a reminder I was there, a sign I was still alive. "Amanda, what the hell are you doing? You coming in or not?" my friend said as his head bobbed in the distance, his body immersed in the murky, dark water. "I'm coming. Calm down," I said testily, not sure why I was hesitating to join the crowd. The water lapped cold against my feet, even though the summer day had been hot and humid. Pale faces turned to me, and I retreated from the edge, not wanting to feel their stares on my half-naked body. My stomach and face had become round and filled out in my second year of college. I was not used to seeing my small frame with excess skin, and I had become foreign to myself. I had become wary of academia, scared to return to my college class that I had not been attending for over a month. I felt as if I were spiraling into insanity without catalysts. Fear refused to let me look at my grades, and I spent my days and nights locked in my one-bedroom apartment. I only socialized when former friends knocked on my door relentlessly, offering more alcohol in addition to the liter of vodka that had become a constant in my freezer door as a way to escape the reality that had become my life. Erin remained unaware by a careful omission on my part and deep denial on hers. Elise and I did not talk anymore, not since she found me before I graduated high school, sprawled out in a damp red pile on our bathroom floor. Sprinting wildly along the rocky beach, I stopped onto the boat dock and gauged the distance of the long wooden plank. With one deep breath, I began to run again. My feet pounded against the rickety boards, pouncing on the edge of the dock. My legs propelled me forward, and my body flew out, cutting through the thick air. With one motion, I tucked my knees to my chest and rotated around. For a brief second, I was upside down, catching sight of the shore behind me. I hit the cool water upright, and my stomach turned as I sunk down in the depths of the lake. I closed my eyes as the muddy water overwhelmed my sight. My arms pressed down against the pressure, and I felt myself ricochet until I hit the rocky bottom. With an upward thrust, I shot like a bullet up to the surface. My head broke free, and I gasped, gulping in the hot air around me. "About time," a familiar voice said to my right. I turned around to see the speaker and saw my sister paddling toward me. "Hey, Erin, I just wanted to get into the water with style," I said shortly, swimming to meet her near the dock where I could touch. Yeah, well, you took too long. Everyone's back on shore. Let's go, and you can get back in later," she said, already retreating to the beach. "Okay," I replied, but I stayed stationary. My thoughts were still heavy with the vodka churning against my pulse. Suddenly, fatigue overcame me, and I relaxed in the calm water, floating on my back. I looked up at the sky, stars visible without the nearby town's lights to mask them. My eyes slid subconsciously to the North Star, then to the Big Dipper. The sky spun around furiously, and the star and the constellation were lost in a haze of dizziness. I tried to steady my gaze, shaking my head to stop the swirling heaven above me. The smears of light trailing from the bright dots made me uneasy, and I ducked my head under the cool ripples. The darkness overcame me, making my heart beat in protestation to the finality it represented. My tears mixed with the tainted water of the local lake, and I was thankful that my eyes would not be red from crying. Not bothering to look back up at the sky I had once loved, I followed my sister to the shore. So it was a really long story, but pretty much through it all, you can see the change, and you can tell that she felt the change that she was going through. And in a couple spots in it, she mentions that our family was in denial. We were in denial probably for about 5 years. And I was one of the only ones that wouldn't be in denial, but I removed myself from the whole situation, and that wasn't really doing anything either, going out and speaking. So I've started working with Pick with Austin a little bit, and I think that, like he said, the biggest thing is just getting the word out there. We need to get the word out there. It doesn't need to be something that we're in denial about. I think that almost everyone did know someone that has been suicidal, has been depressed, and I just think that it's really important. And thank you for the work that you've done.
The last thing that I want to discuss briefly before we conclude this and somebody gets the guitar is the impact of suicide and what it does to the people around the person that performs this suicidal act. In my situation, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning in October of 2010, and my wife and I found my son in his room. We called 911. The police responded rather largely to the point where they evacuated our entire city block that we live on. We live in a regular housing neighborhood, regular houses with yards, etc. They evacuated the entire block at 4 a.m. in the morning. They called for emergency response, which was all the way in Dallas. It was 8 hours before they entered our house. The response teams that came out, the various responses, they even had to send, I'm not going to go into details of what my son's method was, but they had to have special people come in and remove our pets from the home, and as I said, evacuated all the neighbors from the home, brought in doctors to talk to the neighbors if they thought that they were going to be ill after this. They billed my insurance company, my homeowner's insurance, over $100,000. It's not a small thing. It's not one person saying nobody's going to care, nobody's going to miss me. And it's not about the fact that it cost $100,000 and the whole neighborhood was put out. That's how big and impacting it is. It's extremely impacting. My life has changed. I don't do any of the things I used to do. I work with the hospital now. I go out and I meet with families that have kids who are depressed. A lot of them are not attending school. A lot of them it's because of bullying. So I'm noticing that bullying is really one of the key root causes to depression these days, more so than when we were younger, I think. There's always been bullying in school because, I saw kids bullied, I'd been bullied, but not to any extreme that you would want to take your life over. I think it's a lot different now, particularly as we know with social medias and everybody knows everybody, and you can Facebook your enemies and your friends, and everybody knows what you're doing. They know where you're going to eat. I mean, everybody knows everybody's business. There's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy that stuff too, but it's increased the bullying, and that causes the depression, and depression is a predecessor to suicidal thoughts. So if you see somebody who is acting depressed, or they're doing any of the things that I think Krista gave a list of things like their grades start to drop, they isolate themselves from friends, they start giving things away. I saw some of these things with my son. He was giving things away, but one of the problems that we had in detection was that my son always gave things away, and that's kind of what led us to get into this giving guitars all the time. My son would go to school on a cold day and come home with no jacket. I'd say, "Where's your jacket? Did you lose your jacket?" "No, I gave it to another kid who needed it more than me." I'd buy him a guitar. He'd give it to somebody. "Why'd you give your guitar away? You sold it or what?" "No, this other kid wants a guitar and he doesn't have the money. His parents won't buy him one. I gave him one. You got plenty of guitars, Dad. I'll play one of yours." He was always giving things away. That's why we continued with his memory to do this, because we're not going to be one of the families that says, oh no, our son didn't commit suicide. I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen several recent incidents in this area, Round Rock, Cedar Park. Over the last 3 or 4 months, there's been a number of suicides, high school age kids actually, and there is denial involved in all of them. Several of them I know the parents. By chance, I happen to know the parents of 2 different ones, or not personally, but through friends, in a roundabout way. Their children died by suicide, and the media is not talking about it because the media doesn't want to talk about it for some reason, which I half understand and half don't understand. And the friends and the schools do not want, especially the schools, if somebody was in a high school, the high school doesn't want that getting out that they died by suicide. So there's a lot of denial, and what we're trying to do with our organization is say, stop denying it, get out there and tell people about it, because unless everybody understands it, nobody's going to take it seriously. And I would like to ask our 2 assistants at the top to come down here with our raffle tickets. I'd also like to thank Penny and Elise for telling us about coming out here today, and thank everybody that came out to listen to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a couple of tickets to give away some free CDs. Then we're going to put the tickets back in so that everybody has a chance at the guitar, and the last one we pull will be for the guitar.